I was working full time in a shop in Sydney. So think of a shopping center, not like a supermarket, more of well, imagine a cinema, and around the
Yes.
cinema, you've got the trendy cafes, you've got the little restaurants. It's that type of shopping center. So more the big ticket items, more of the large, big box, brown box type of sofas, luxury goods, um, that type of shopping center. And when I was working there, my hours on paper would have been 40 hours a week. In reality, I was working closer to 45 to 55, just like everybody else who isn't paid
Yeah.
as show up and work per hour. Um, so I was managing this little retail place. And I say little, but
Mm.
in the it was a seven, eight. Yeah, it was a eight-figure turnover per year. So that's not really little.
No, that's
Um,
substantial.
but that's substantial. So during my lunch break at one of the weekdays that I was on site, we had we had staff members that could go out of the store, take their lunch break, come back. But
Yes.
there really wasn't anywhere you could drive to. So we all stayed in the shopping center, whether we went to a cafe or whatever. That was our lunch. One of the
Correct.
things that happened to me on a Saturday, the good thing about Saturday is we always had the most staff because it was our
Right.
busiest day. So during a Saturday, I had an organized lunch break and I made sure that my shift was covered, that everybody was on top of everything before I left the store. But I parked my car that day on the top level of the shopping center so
Right.
that, first of all, I get the best mobile phone reception when I'm sitting in my car. I didn't want to get interrupted. The second thing was for the previous week, I've been working really hard with a real estate agent that's situated about 4 hours away from Sydney to argue my case so that they would agree to run the auction with me as a telephone bidder rather than me having to drive 4 hours out of Sydney on a Saturday, which is my busiest work day, and then
Right.
4 hours back. They said no. So let me paint the picture of this for you. I'm sitting in my air conditioned car on the top floor of the shopping center. It's a beautiful spring day, and over my Bluetooth speaker, I can hear the auctioneer reading out numbers. But if you were with me 2 weeks before that,
Yeah.
I was at a local auction. So I went 200 to 300 meters away from my house in Sydney
Yes.
to a piece of land that had a house on it. So imagine yourself walking with me through this house as my
Mm-hmm.
first inspection.
Yeah.
The land is 450 square meters.
Yes.
The house has a skillion roof, which
Uh-huh.
means that inside each room, the ceiling slants down rather than being a flat ceiling.
Yes.
In some areas, you could touch the ceiling. So in each room you go into, on the door that brings you into the bedroom, it might be 3 meters high, but on the other wall where the
Side.
window is, you're looking at about 2.1 meters. It's the absolute minimum that you could get away
Minimum.
with. So the minute
Mm-hmm.
you've got a light fixture, you can touch the light fixture without having to stand in a chair. I'm
Okay.
walking through this area and I know that the house isn't new. You could tell that it was built maybe 60 years ago or 70 years ago.
So
The
quite.
scary thing is, yes,
So it had it was a decent aged, it not antique, but fairly old.
fairly old house. But imagine this, as you're walking through, you notice that one part of the house seems like it's lower than the rest of the house. You're walking through and you could see that the rear of the house has sunk. So
No.
when you walk around the outside with your camera, you notice, you take photos, and you realize that at least two or three areas are sinking into the ground. What that means is that it's a structural problem.
Yes,
It
it
isn't a
does.
quick fix.
No.
So 450 square meters, and I
Mm.
know from looking at the house that it's not a paint job. It's not just a renovation that'll mean go in there, paint the house, and move in. you really need to change what it's standing on. And the minute you
Yes.
try to do that, you're going to need to take the roof off. You'll take
Yes.
some of the walls out. You'll change the foundation. So it's going to be an expensive job to fix.
That's right.
The auction was on the Saturday. So
Mm.
after the inspection and running my numbers and working out how much it will cost to demolish and a quick estimate
Ah.
of what type of soil it is.
Yes.
Because remember, when you're doing a foundation,
You've got to
you're
have a
going to
soil
dig
test.
only to the you're going to dig only to the level that that soil is going to support for a structure.
That's right.
So checking the soil and realizing that it may be contaminated and the council may require you to remove a lot of the topsoil just to demolish and put a new thing in there. I'm running the
Oh.
estimates and I'm doing the quick calculations in my head. Then I go back and speak to the experts of what their estimates are without actually digging exploration holes. So
Yes.
450 square meters,
Yeah.
a house that needs to be demolished, that is
Yes.
unlivable. The
Yes.
fence on one side's completely down, so you could just walk across to your next door neighbor. The back of it, the fence is so rickety that a strong wind would knock it down. The front has a different fence again, so three out of the four parts of the
Friend.
fence are
Mm-hmm.
just completely wrong.
Yes.
So what's the redeeming feature? Really, it's just a suburb.
Yes.
So 450 square meters. I went to the auction. I went to the auction after running my numbers and deciding not what I can afford, not what's the most that I'm willing to pay,
Yeah.
but what would make economic sense.
Uh-huh.
I get into the room and think, okay, I'm just going to stand there and bid, but I don't want to be the first bidder,
Yeah.
but to be the last bidder. I want to own the house.
Yes.
So the auctioneer starts calling, and I notice this is midday and the room is full. There are 20 to 30
Right.
people on site in the
Yes.
house bidding. I look around and being a neighbor, being somebody who lives in the area, I don't recognize any of the faces. So I don't feel like they're my next door neighbors just being nosy.
Okay.
But the bidding starts at 1.3, 1.35, 1.4
Gosh.
million dollars,
Yeah, yeah.
$1.5 million, 1.51, 1.53, 1.54, $1,550,000. And I'm sitting there thinking, let's just watch. Let's just see if it starts to cool down.
Mm.
Any raise. Then people start offering hundred thousands
Okay.
up, goes up to 1.7 million, 1.8 million, 1.81. And I'm thinking, okay, finally it's going to stop at 1 point. This is still below the number that I'm comfortable with, but
Okay.
man, we are getting close.
Yes.
1.815, 1.816. The auctioneer breaks and goes into a spiel, a
Yes.
story of why this suburb is the best suburb, why it's almost guaranteed to increase in value over the next few years. Then
You
going to
already
read
know
out
all
my
that,
number.
don't you,
Should I
Amir?
bid? Is this a good time to bid? As if I bid, will somebody bid over me? 1.9. What? How? What did I just miss? How did? Anyway, 1.95. $2 million. That voice was my own.
Yes.
I just bid $2 million on a
For a
property
block of
that
land.
needs to be knocked
Mm.
down
Mm.
to reduce it just to a block of land so that I
Mm.
can start.
Yes.
Holy moly, $2
Yes.
million. dollars. Have I just bought this place? 2.1, 2.11, 2.105, going once, going twice, gone. I missed it.
Oh,
What would you have done? Would you have gone the extra 50,000? Would you have gone the extra 150,000? But the numbers said
oh,
2 million is the
that was
maximum.
your.
Otherwise, you're stuck.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're stuck.
Yeah.
Are you going to get emotional? Are you going to buy something and then try to justify it in your head on the spot? Now, a week after that,
Mm.
I'm now sitting in my car during my lunch break
Yeah.
at the auction,
Yeah.
not for this property, a rural property,
Yes.
not a local. Randwick property.
Yes.
But the auction feels the same. The emotions are there. I worked out the numbers beforehand, just like I always do.
Yes.
I worked out what the New South Wales Valuer General has
Would.
rated the land, meaning
Mm,
that's what you're going to pay tax on because that's what the government
they.
feels just
It's
the piece
worth.
of land is
Mm,
worth.
mm.
So the Governor General for that piece of land in Meadow Flat, 4 hours north of Sydney, has marked it as worth $47,000 with no buildings on it.
Okay.
47,000. So I'm estimating that at the auction, with emotions, with everybody jumping in, we
It
might
might
find
go.
50,000,
Yep.
55,000, 60,000. So over the estimate, obviously.
Uh huh.
But how high would it go? Are we going to get another excited bidder like we did in
In
Sydney?
Sydney.
The week before that auction, I rang up to register as a bidder. I sent in a scan certified by a Justice of the Peace to the auctioneer, which was the local real estate agent in the area.
Right.
I sent the scan of my passport, my driver's license, my Medicare card, filled in the form that you do as a telephone
Uh,
bidder. Mind you, this is a regional property. It's not a
yes.
Sydney-based property. So
Yeah.
everybody in Sydney already does these type of forms, but
Yes.
regional is really
A bit laid. They're not quite used to
slower.
doing that. Yes. Slow in the.
They're not
To.
used to the electronic and technological
Correct.
desires that busy city people have to do. If there's
Yeah.
a Saturday auction, then
Yes.
people take the time off and go to the Saturday auction.
Yeah.
So one good thing about this was that the auction was run by the government. So the piece of land was being released
Ah.
by the
Okay.
Australian government. What that means is that the real estate agent has to do a formal public auction. But the flip side is that because of the very strong rules that the government enforces,
Uh huh.
the bidders have to qualify. Sometimes there's no reserve, meaning you
Yes.
can bid $1 for a property, and if nobody else shows up, it might be yours. But usually now,
That
even the
doesn't happen.
government makes sure
Mm.
that there's a minimum reserve.
Uh huh.
So, so the real estate agent came back to me after I submitted my forms via email and said, "Oh no, I'm sorry, sir. This is a government auction, and they're not prepared for telephone bidding or internet bidding." I see, I understand that, but you're a very large real estate company. You're one of the biggest in Australia.
Uh huh.
All I can ask is perhaps you wouldn't mind sending my application through to the government correspondent that's
Mm.
handling this auction. Oh,
Don't
very
they
well,
have
sir. I
to?
mean, it can't hurt to try.
I was
So
going to say that
the
they
good news is,
should have done that by
do they have
virtue
to?
of.
No, they don't
Yes.
have to.
Oh, they don't
They don't
have
have to.
to.
They don't have to.
Right.
They, the government official has the final say on how the auction will be run. The good news is that if I have this problem, then everybody has this problem. When there's one property that's being advertised as a government release and they only allow 2 weeks before auction for it to be announced, there
Mm.
isn't that 6 week hype up. There
Yes.
isn't the letterbox drop for all the neighbors to see.
Promotion,
Especially
marketing.
for a rural property, you're
Mm.
not promoting to the rural next door neighbors.
Yeah.
It's just let's find the local real estate agent, advertise it for this day, run it in 2 weeks' time, get the public to vote.
Uh huh.
So the good news is that if I'm in Sydney and I'm bidding on a property that the local people may not even know about or care about,
Yeah.
there's not many people who are going to show up and get emotional about it.
Mm.
So I knew, let's go back to this car. I'm sitting in the car, the air conditioning's on, the Bluetooth is on, I can hear the bidder. I switch off the air conditioner. I'm worried that that little humming noise is going to disrupt the bid and I'll miss something. So, and remember, I'm on the top floor, so there's no
Yes.
ceiling. I can
And
just
on your
see the
lunch
sky and
break.
it's spring. And on my lunch break, middle of the day in Sydney, the car's starting to heat up. So I don't know
Yeah.
if I'm sweating because the auction's freaking me out or if I'm sweating because
Just
the car's
because you're
getting
hot.
hot. The auctioneer starts. There's 10 properties that the auctioneer is doing for the government that day. They're all one after the other, and they're all within a few kilometers of each other.
Mm.
I placed bids on 3 of those properties, and I always start low because there might not be a reserve. Out of the 10, the first 7 sell quite quickly. There's roughly 10 people, from what I can tell, at
Right.
the auction. And I'm saying that because of the bidder numbers being called.
Yes.
So part of it is me trying to have a picture in my head of
Of.
what I'm not seeing, what's actually happening on site. And the
Mm.
other part of me is taking an educated guess to say, well, I know
There's
that
only a
legally
million.
they must be registered, so they're not going to make up numbers.
Uh huh.
But it gets to the property that I'm interested in. And the bidding starts at $500.
No.
Yes, $500.
Wow.
So this is just a vacant piece of land. It's of
Yeah.
no use to anybody, and the
Mm.
government is getting rid of it.
Mm.
So the size of the land. Remember the week
Yes.
before, we were at
Yes.
450 square
50.
meters. The size of this
Just a
piece of
city
land
block.
is just a city block is 450.
Mm.
The size of the piece of land that's rural is 3,600 square meters. 4,000 square meters is
Is an
1 acre.
acre.
So yeah, so it's
Three
not
quarters
quite
of
an
an acre.
acre,
Mm.
3/4 of an acre.
Mm.
So 3,600 square meters. It's 10 times the size of the piece of land that I live in, 10 times the piece of land that my house is on
Yes.
in Sydney.
Yes.
1,500, $2,000, 2,500, $3,000. Do you know what I walked away with that day?
Oh, tell me.
Because I persevered in insisting that they accept my telephone bid
Yep.
rather than saying, no, I have to take the day off, drive 4 hours there and 4 hours back.
Yeah.
I walked away with 3,600 meters, about 100 meters from the local public school,
Uh huh.
close, it's a corner block
Yes.
close to the Great Western Highway.
Which is a major highway
Five
through the rural
major
areas of.
highway
Mm,
connecting Lithgow to Bathurst,
that's right.
3,600 square meters for $5,800.
Unheard of. Were you happy?
That doesn't make me special. That doesn't make me special. That just means I'm persistent.
That's right. That's
Now,
right.
what would you put on that property? If you had 3,600 and you know that 400, 500, 600, even 1,000 is a big enough piece of land to build on,
That's
would
right.
you break it into 600s and make 6 of
Mm.
them? Would you
Mm.
build storage sheds? Would you build a residential house at all? Or would you build a motel?
What
There's
do the
so many
numbers
options. If you're
say?
close to the highway, oh, great question, Tony. You've done your research. The, the numbers say that on the same street,
Yes.
houses that are a 4 bedroom, 2 bathroom are selling between 600,000 and 900,000. So the building cost of a house, if you're looking at the basic most,
Yes.
let's say it's $2,000 per square meter.
Mm.
So if you're thinking of a 120 square meter house, you simply multiply 2,000 by 120.
Yeah.
If you're thinking, what accommodation do people want? Then let's say that a double bedroom might be 3 meters by 3 meters, enough to
Mm.
fit a queen size bed and a built-in wardrobe.
Uh huh.
So if we had 4 of these bedrooms, let's just do some quick maths. 3 by 3 is 9, let's say 10 square meters. And you had 4 of those, so that's 40 square meters.
Yes.
You have 80 square meters left over to do a
Kitchen,
massive lounge
living
room with an
room.
open plan kitchen with a living
Mm-hmm.
room all in one.
Yes.
You could potentially, if you think about what size a comfortable bathroom is,
Yes.
maybe 2 meters by 4 meters is comfortable for a shower, a bath, a toilet, a vanity. So would you convert a 4 by 4, meaning a 16 square meter area, into a back-to-back bathroom? So on one side, you've got a 4 meter by 2 meter. On the other side, you've got a 4 meter by 2 meter.
Yes.
So how big is that? 4, 16,
And
16 plus 40, you're up to 56 out of the 120, and you've got 60 left over
yes.
for everything else.
Mm.
That's massive
Yes.
in Sydney terms. It's
Yes.
massive.
In Sydney terms.
But Here's the catch. Buying
Uh-huh.
a property for $5,800 leaves you with so much of the options and the time.
Mm.
Because a lot of time when you're buying a multi-million dollar house, you have to make a decision quickly. The cost of
Yes.
holding land and doing nothing is prohibitive. You're
Yes.
losing money every year. It doesn't have anything on it.
Yeah.
If you had a 5% interest rate on a mortgage and you purchased $5,800 property, let's
Mm-hmm.
say altogether you spent $10,000 on your research, your solicitor, all the
Yes.
bits and pieces. What's 10% of 10,000?
A thousand.
$1,000?
Mm-hmm.
So that
Yes.
means per year, 5% is half that.
$500.
So if you
Yes.
can afford $500 a year to hold a piece of land,
Yes.
10 years down the track, maybe the government's invested on that road. Maybe they've invested at the school that's 100 meters away.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the population's growth. Maybe the population has grown. So the question there, and this comes back to
Do
what you
you
asked me about
hold?
earlier,
Mm.
do you hold or do you invest where a supermarket is investing, where an Aldi,
Mm.
a Woolworths, a Coles is investing?
Uh-huh.
Do you work out where government infrastructure is spending hundreds of millions of dollars on new roads? Do you
Yes.
find out where the nearest Bunnings or hardware store
How
is
far
opening up?
away? Yes.
Because these places can afford to take a gamble with their money and let it sit there for 5 years, 7 years, 10 years. Can you?
I see.
I know for me, that's one of my considerations.
Yeah.
Would I go out regionally and buy something
And
that costs me
wait.
$500 a year to hold?
Mm.
Probably. If I
Yes.
had to pay 10 times the amount, and remember the cost of what the Governor General said
Was
that land
50,
was
47,000?
47,000.
Yes.
So if you're buying a land at auction because the auctioneer doesn't want to have any internet bidders, doesn't want to have any telephone bidders, and is only opening up to people that drive all the way out there to bid in person, then you're potentially buying at 1/10 the value of just the vacant land on its own. So
Yeah.
if you just want to flip it in 3 years' time and recover your $10,000,
You should be able to.
potentially make a profit,
Mm.
I never say should, but potentially
Yes.
you've got the ability to make that decision in 3, 4, or 5 years without having the pressure of making a decision of this or that,
Yeah.
without the pressure of losing some of your personal freedoms, missing out on a holiday because you're trying to tighten your belt to save the
Yes.
extra 5% or 10%. So imagine a time where you're no longer pressured by time pressure because you've made smart financial decisions.
That's right.
And that's one of the universal things that I come back to.
Yeah.
Is your purchase going to put stress on you?
On your
Not
financial
because you're
situation.
gambling or you're
Mm.
worried whether it's going to go up or not,
Mm.
but the outside things, the school education for your kids, the food on your table, the type of car you drive, if the washing machine breaks down,
Yes.
if you're putting so much stress on yourself to get ahead in life that you're missing out on the comfortable
Goodness of
necessities,
life. Yes.
you're doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
You should be comfortable in what you're doing and not
Yeah.
stretch so far that you're desperate to make a decision, that
Yeah.
you're desperate to sell, that you're desperate to buy. That's not a good life. That's
No.
stress.
Yeah.
That's not healthy.
Yeah.
So, coming back to the question you asked, do you invest for rent return? Do you invest for
Mm.
capital growth?
Mm.
I do both. And I find
Yes.
that my customers quite often are
Want
working
to do
full
both?
time in a job just like I was.
Yeah.
They work not the 38 hours a week, they quite
For
often work
longer.
the 40, 50, 55, 60 hours a
Yeah.
week.
Yeah.
But the one thing they have in common is that they enjoy personal freedom, that personal freedom is important to them. And that's why, coming back to the question, what do? I help people buy property, and I help them buy property in a way that isn't stressful, but
Yes.
also I listen to what their overall needs are. So I help buy property for people that aren't excited by property. They're
Mm.
excited by personal freedom. They're
Yes.
excited by financial freedom. They want the research done. They want to know that they're making a decision that's balanced
Yeah.
rather than going out and hunting. You see, I
And
love
that's
the
what
hunt.
you
I
love.
actually,
You love the hunt, don't
that's
you?
it.